Once upon a time.
Hello. I've been working in my garden again today, digging over some soil. And now I'm moving some of it to another part of the garden. And I'm moving it in this. This is a wheelbarrow. You see, you put the soil or whatever you want to move in this bit, and because it has a wheel at the front, it moves very easily when I push it. I can move it forwards and backwards, and I can also turn round. There we are. While I was digging in the soil, I found something living in it. Something about that long, and something that wriggled when I picked it up. Do you know what it was? Let's see if I can find it. There we are. It's a wriggly worm. There are quite a lot of worms in the ground because that's where they live. They burrow down into the soil, and where the soil is quite hard, you can actually see the holes the worms have made. Of course, there are lots of creatures living in the garden. Some of them are very small and you have to look very hard to see them, like earwigs, spiders, and ants. They make their homes in the garden. And there's one creature that we might see in a park or a garden that actually carries its home around with it on its back. It's not very big, it's about that big, and its home is round and very hard. And when it's frightened or tired, it can actually curl up inside it where it's safe. You know what it is? Well, there's one over here. You see? It's a snail. And its home is this shell. It's actually curled up inside it now. I don't think I'd like to carry my home around with me on my back. I don't think I get very far. Perhaps that's why snails are so slow. Of course, just as these tiny creatures make their homes in the garden, so larger animals also have special homes of their own. Like, where do you think a cow might be when it's not in the field? In a cow shed. And what about a horse when it's not galloping around the field? In a stable. And what about our friend the pig? In a pigsty. I think I'll make a picture of an animal with these shapes. An animal that looks a bit like a horse, but it's a bit smaller, but its ears are much bigger. And you sometimes see these animals at the seaside giving rides. See if you know what it is. Let's start with these two big ears. Like that. And it has quite a big head. And fairly large body. A bit like that. And 4 legs. 2 at the front. And 2 at the back. And I won't forget his tail. Do you know what that is? It's a donkey. Our story today is about a little boy who lived in a cottage at the edge of a wood. Once upon a time, there was a little boy called Budalinik. One day his grandmother said, "Grandfather and I must go out to the market to buy some apples. Now remember, don't open the door, no matter who knocks." "I won't," said Budalinik, and he waved goodbye. And then he settled down to play with his drum. Wish I had someone who'd listen, he thought. Just at that moment, there was a knock at the door. I'm sorry, said Budalinik. I'm not allowed to let anyone in. That's all right, said a sweet voice. I don't want to come in. You come out instead and we can play. Budalinik thought to himself, Grandmother didn't say I couldn't go out. And he forgot about don't open the door. He opened the door, and there stood the sly old mother fox. Come along, dear, she said. I'm sure you'd like to ride on my long, bushy tail. And so Budalinik climbed onto a long, bushy tail, and they raced off into the meadow, with Budalinik holding on very tight. Oh, how fast can you go? He shouted happily. I can go much faster, said the fox. And she did. Oh, that's too fast, shouted Budalinik, who was getting a bit frightened. Perhaps we better go home now. But the fox ran even faster. You shall go home, said the fox. You shall go to my home and be a new toy for my fox cubs. And she ran as fast as she could to a hole in the woods. Oh, mother, said the three little fox cubs, what a lovely toy. And they jumped up at Budalinik and knocked him over. Budalinik began to cry. I want my granny, he sobbed. And at the same moment, Granny was crying too. I want my Budalinik. Wherever can he be? Look, said Grandfather. Look at the paw marks outside the door. I know where Budalinik is, and I'm going to get him back. And he picked up his fiddle and a big sack, and he started off into the woods. When he reached the fox's hole, he picked up his fiddle and he began to play. Fox cubs 1 and 2 and 3, wouldn't you like to come and see? I'm a little brown fiddle goes diddle diddle diddle, a diddle 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 dum dee. Oh, what a terrible noise, said the mother fox. Here, she said to her first cub, give the fiddler an egg and tell him to go away. So the first little fox cub stuck his head out of the hole and, gotcha, said Grandfather, and he popped him into his big sack. And Grandfather began to play again. Fox cubs 1 and fox cub 2, I've got something to show to you. From a little brown fiddle goes diddle diddle diddle, a diddle 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 dum do. Oh, groaned the mother fox to the second cub. Take the fiddler another egg and tell him to stop at once. So the second little fox cub stuck his head out of the hole and, gotcha, said Grandfather, and he popped him into the sack. And then he began to play again. A fox cub, come and play with me, but it's Budalinik I want to see. While my little brown fiddle goes diddle diddle diddle, a diddle 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 dum dee. Oh, it's really too bad, said the mother fox, and she gave the third fox cub an egg and said, tell him that's the last one he'll get. And so the third little fox cub stuck his head out of the hole and, gotcha, said Grandfather, and he popped him into the sack. And then he began to play again. The mother fox was very angry. Oh, where are all my children? She called. In my sack, said Grandfather, and I'm going to keep them there until you release Budalinik. The mother fox was furious, but what could she do? Go on then, she snarled at Budalinik. Go home. So Budalinik climbed out of the hole, and Grandfather let the little foxes out of his sack. Don't you ever do that again, he shouted down the hole to the mother fox. And don't you ever do that again, he said to Budalinik. Oh, I won't, he promised. And he never did. Budalinik's grandfather and grandmother went to the market to buy their apples, didn't they? Perhaps you've been to a market and seen where they sell apples, or to a shop. Or perhaps you're lucky enough to have an apple tree in your garden. I think Budalinic will be very careful in future, just in case when someone knocks, it might be the fox. Knocks and fox. Those two words sound alike, don't they? Perhaps you can think of some more words that sound like knocks and fox. Then you can make up a little rhyme of your own. I've got to go back to my digging. But I'll see you again soon. Bye now. Take care. Fox cubs 1 and 2 and 3, wouldn't you like to come and see? I'm a little brown fiddle goes diddle diddle diddle, diddle 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 dum dee.